Welcome to Marketer's Alchemy, where we pull back the curtain on the intricate world of data-driven marketing. On this show, we delve into the convergence of marketing as an art form and data as a scientific foundation, unveiling the secrets to turning raw data into marketing gold. I'm your host, Kathryn Turnoff, Senior Product Manager at Deluxe. Join us as we dive into real-life case studies and give you a front row seat to industry pioneers and visionaries. Welcome to Marketer's Alchemy, turning data into gold. I'm Kathryn Turnoff, and I'm here with Joshua Brost, VP of Marketing for Pi Insurance. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Kathryn.
Thanks for being here today. So can you tell us a little bit about your career journey? What brought you to where you are today at Pi?
That's so funny. I actually went to college for journalism, and I got a minor in international affairs. And
Okay.
I really had dreams of riding around on the backs of tanks, winning Pulitzers, all of those sorts of things. I got done with school and realized that if I wanted to actually eat,
Right.
print journalism was probably not
Not your choice, sure.
where I needed to be. So I really quickly pivoted and got a PR and marketing job at a local nonprofit. And so I did that for a couple of years and then eventually moved to Robert Half, which I'm sure, as you know, is a large international staffing company. And when I moved there, I was a district PR manager. I did that for about 4 years, and eventually they offered me a promotion to take over the national PR strategy for our technology division. And Robert Half is based in the Bay Area. And so they relocated me out to the Bay Area. And eventually I got the bug, like you do when you live in San Francisco, and wanted to get the true startup experience. So I left there to take over as a director of communications at a small startup that was competing with like Wix, Weebly, and in the true small startup experience, right? That I think everybody should have if they want to do startups. Money got tight, staff got small, and it was on to my next opportunity. But I got a job for a mobile app company called MileIQ, running their comms, running their organic user acquisition, PR, you name it. And eventually we were acquired by Microsoft. And so we moved into Microsoft and got the best of both worlds for a while. Eventually I left Microsoft and went to Bolt, which is an e-commerce startup. And eventually an executive recruiter from Pi Insurance came knocking. And throughout my career, I've really gravitated towards small business marketing. I love small businesses. They are the lifeblood of our economy. And marketing to small businesses is both fun and challenging because they behave like consumers, but require sort of the respect and understanding that you would give to an enterprise, right? And a business. So it's a ton of fun. And within the first 10 minutes of talking to the executive recruiter and finding out that, Pi is a small business insurance company, we exist to help small businesses, they had me sold.
Sure.
That's how I ended up here leading our marketing department.
I mean, from Pulitzer Dreams to Pi. I love it. I feel like that's your autobiography, right? The title. I am super excited to dive in and really draw on your wealth of experience and all of your different opportunities that you've had. Like, I'm very excited for today's conversation. So let's head to our first segment, Alchemy Unveiled, Mixing Marketing Potions. So Joshua, can we talk a little bit about what kind of data that your team uses on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting in our business model and in our industry because we have two distinct marketing motions that target completely different groups. So we have a B2B marketing motion, and that is how we go and acquire and enable our network of independent agencies that sell Pi Insurance. We also have a direct to consumer or small business model, which is far more like a B2C motion. And those require different types of data. So when we're going out and we're trying to target partners or agencies, we're looking at demographics, firmographics, the size of their book of business, right? What for example, so how large is their workers' comp book of business or their commercial auto book of business? Their geographical coverage. So some agency partners work in very restricted geographies, like a single DMA. Some work across multiple states or nationally. And then we also look at things like their existing carrier relationships. So who besides Pi are they actually placing business with? On the small business or the consumer side, we're looking at industry types. So we write 70% of all class codes. In insurance, class codes are the type of business you operate. So we want to make sure we're looking for folks that fit within those, those 70% of class codes. We're looking at employee count, risk profile, geographical concentration or distribution, right? So all of those data come into our marketing. And then we're also, as we think about engagement marketing and productivity marketing, we look at behavioral tracking. So things like, how do our agents behave in our partner portal? How do they engage? What are their quote to bind ratios? And for our customers, what life cycle stage are they in? Um, then we also look across channels, right? So we look to see how consumer demand is influencing our agent behavior or our agent interest, and vice versa.
Got it. So if we think of maybe that B2C, right? And so our consumer's life cycle, are there indicators that prove more valuable for you that help attract new customers, right? Are there life cycle signals that help you kind of think like, okay, this is the prime time for us to gain a new customer for Pi?
It's different across businesses and different business types. And just before I answer that question, I think I'll start here. The most obvious is what we call X dates. So we can actually get information of when their current policy is expiring, right? So obviously, if you start targeting somebody when they have an X date coming up, that is the most obvious time to target somebody for a new policy. Now, one of the challenges with insurance, and I think that anybody who works in insurance knows this, but most folks don't, and it was a shock to me as a marketer coming into as a first time insurance marketer, we're selling a product that we actually can't sell to everybody who wants to buy, right? Because there are risk profiles that are outside of our appetite. So it's interesting. We have a very large top of funnel, and then automatically that starts to winnow down based on risk profile.
Got it. Okay. And then are there any things that you learned about your customers that would surprise you, right? So we're looking at this X date and that makes total sense, right? And policy is about to expire. I need a new one. Anything that surprised you in the data where you're like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that would be an indicator for needing insurance, but it is.
We're a little bit lucky, Kathryn, in that workers' comp is something that I think in all but one or two states is legally required. So if you own a business and have employees, you need insurance. So it's not really so much what data tells me if you need insurance, it's more about when you're going to buy. And this probably doesn't surprise people in the insurance industry, but it surprised me when I joined, is how many business owners wait until the last possible moment to start searching for insurance.
Look, this is a very common theme. I think I love the idea of the timing and talking about like we know you have a need. It's just like getting our timing right with you. We've had a lot of products on here, and that is like one of the biggest. I always jot it down. I don't need workers' comp insurance, but I always jot things down from these calls because I'm like, oh yeah, I've been putting that off. I need it. So I think it's not all that surprising, but yeah, most of them do wait.
Yeah.
If we could switch gears a little bit, I know that when you stepped into this role, we've talked about how the company hadn't invested much in brand. During your time, how have you changed this and what does that look like for you now?
Yeah. So when I first joined Pi 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago, we were really focused on not only performance marketing, but primarily on the B2C motion or marketing directly to small business owners. And listen, I love performance marketing. I have a performance marketing background. Used to live and die by LTV over CAC. And so I can do brand marketing, but performance marketing, easy to prove your value, right? The issue you have when you're an insurance company is we're ultimately selling a commodity. You're selling something that lots of other people offer. And by and large, your buyers resent having to have, but they are so happy when they have it when we need it, right? So really quickly, I said we have to invest in our brand. We have to, like, especially in small business, trust is key, and insurance trust is key. And so we developed this campaign, and it's sort of our large wraparound umbrella campaign that has been going on multiple years now. And we call it Safety First, then Pi Insurance. And if you look at a lot of insurance marketing that's out there, they focus on what you're covered for after you've had the accident. And we said, what if we find a humorous way to flip that on their head on its head and look at all of the like absolutely ridiculous things people could do to prevent the accident, right? Because prevention is really key. And then hey, we're here if your prevention fails. We invest a significant amount now in our brand strategy so that people know who we are. But also, and we may talk about this later, but when brand is done right, all boats rise.
That's a great quote. I definitely agree with that. Have you changed how you look at attribution or to show that value, right? You come in and you're like, guys, we need to focus on brand. I know that's always a hard sell. How are you proving that value out?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me be really clear. We are still doing partner acquisition. We're
Right.
still doing the performance marketing, but you're right. You have to sell the attribution for brand, and that's extraordinarily difficult. We talked about how all boats rise when brand is done well. And so in case of insurance, that is our partner acquisition, that is our small business acquisition, that is our retention. And it's also what we call partner submission. And that is the volume of policies that our partner agencies are sending to us to take a look at and see if we can write them and give a competitive quote. And that was the number one thing I wanted to influence when we started to do brand. And as you mentioned, hey, the tracking is really hard. This isn't like last click. This isn't first click. This is, oh my God, how do we do this? Especially when we're investing in things like linear TV, radio, some limited out of home. It's really difficult. And so what we did is we built an attribution model. We have a marketing analyst, and we built an attribution model that we call MAPS, and it's marketing attribution for partner submission. And this was done by our marketing analytics team in conjunction with our data science team. And I will be the first to admit that this is a lot of math that is way over my head, right? Way over my head. I took
Fair.
math for liberal arts. Um,
Same. I'm with you. We can skip all that part.
yeah, but it's a really cool, sort of multivariate attribution model that works on a nonlinear regression
Mhm.
and can measure multiple things in market at once, looks at the spike in volume we get, and can differentiate what's working, what's not, and what our ROI is.
And what have you learned through applying this attribution model to your efforts? Are there anything that surprised you or things that kind of affirmed your assumptions along the way?
I'd say it's a lot of assumption affirmation. That's a good way to put
Yay, that's
it.
good.
And then some surprises, right? So because of maps and its precursor that we were using, we have basically completely stopped spending on linear TV. We've basically stopped spending on radio. And we're way more heavily invested now in things like connected TV, targeted audio. So that was one of the biggest surprises. Spotify does really well for us. Um, and so it's really changed the landscape of what quote unquote we've always done and open the doors to new channels that we thought might perform, but are performing way better than we thought they would.
Amazing. I'm glad of the success, and it's always nice when the math nerds are right.
I love it.
So I really want to dig into some of these campaigns that you've worked on. So let's move to our next segment, from nuggets to campaign gold. So the first campaign that I want to talk about is your Zombieland campaign. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about this and what you've learned?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to say is Zombieland is what we call the campaign internally. So Sony Pictures, please do not send me a cease and desist. It
Oh my
is
gosh. So I'm like spilling the
it-
secrets. I'm getting you in trouble.
no, I think we'll be fine. But really, what Zombieland is we can acquire partners all we want, but eventually, some subset of partners, and often not a small subset, go completely dormant. So they're in our system. They are officially partners, but they stop submitting to us, right? They stop sending business our way, and we wanted to figure out a way to understand, one, why are you not submitting business anymore, and then two, to resurrect the dead. And so we built this campaign that starts with an initial email that is an embedded survey in an email that gives them a very easy way to click, hey, why have you stopped submitting business with us? And then depending on that answer, they get put into unique content tracks to help get them active again, including in certain tracks a meeting with our BD team to go over whatever concerns or whatever issues they've had.
Got it. And so, what from this survey are there specific data points that you're looking at to help inform the next steps or maybe to help the agents kind of guide the discussion, anything like that?
I'll give you two examples from the survey, and I think the survey is like 8 questions. But two of the most prevalent are I've had a bad experience, right? And so if you've had a bad experience, the next email you get is, hey, let us buy you a cup of coffee. We'll send you a gift card. And somebody from our BD team will meet with you and try to understand what that bad experience was and to correct it, right? And then there's some additional emails in that flow. The other one is I don't understand your appetite. And so in insurance, when we talk about appetite, it's what types of business we like, what kind of risk profiles we like. And so then those folks get put into an entire nurture path that helps educate them on our appetite and tools we have to check policies before, or submissions rather, before they spend a lot of effort filling out the entire submission form to see if this policy even has a chance. And the great thing about Zombieland is it's been running for, I'd say, roughly a year. And we've already generated over $3 million in premium from formerly dead agencies.
Wow, that's amazing. That's definitely a good story, good ending. It feels like you're using a lot of your previous lives to kind of inform what you're doing today at Pi. What are some of the other e-commerce tactics that you've used to kind of improve things like your partner portal, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everybody, all of your listeners are familiar with abandoned carts, right? Your abandoned checkout. You leave that pair of shoes in your checkout cart and suddenly it's following you around the internet and you can't get away from those shoes until you buy them. And so applying that same logic, we have quite a large number of submissions that our partner agents will go into the partner portal. They will fill it out. It'll be a risk that we like with what we think is a competitive quote, and then nothing ever happens with it. It just sits there and it never gets bound. When we say something gets bound, that means they've actually closed the deal with us. We are now the insurer. Um, and so we thought, how cool would it be if certain policies that fit certain profiles, we started following up on that policy in a scalable, automated way. So we start sending follow-up emails, and that is now progressed into a digest for the agencies that submit a lot every week. Like, hey, here's all of your abandoned submissions, and then slowly incorporating that into retargeting. Now the policy is going to follow you around the internet. We have implemented that and we've had some great success with it. In fact, what we look at as a metric of success is what we call bind to submit or bind to quote. And of all of the policies that have been put into our abandoned submissions cohort, we have seen a multi-point, not multi-percent, multi-point increase in our bind to quote rate, or our bind to submit rate rather.
Interesting. That's amazing. When you think of all of the different groups you're targeting, right? And it feels like you have a lot of different messages to different folks. What data are you looking at to kind of make sure that this messaging, especially when they're already set up maybe in like an automated flow, like what are you looking at to make sure that this messaging is resounding with its audience?
Wow, there there are so many factors, right? We really try to live and die by the rule: right message, right person, right time, right surface. And so, an example of just some of the data we use, we talked about sort of the firmographics, the demographics, those sorts of things. But we also look at things like your last submission date, your first submission date, what role somebody has at a particular agency. Are they the agency principal? Are they a producer? What type of agency are you? Are you an employee at a small retail agency? Are you employee at a large wholesale agency or a national partner? Um, how often are you logging into our partner portal, right? What volume of business are you doing with us? Are you somebody who submits one policy a month? Are you somebody who submits 3 policies a day? Right. So all of these types of data, and there's a million others, um, inform the types of messaging we are going to get in front of you, whether that's through advertising, whether that's through email or other engagement surfaces like a pop-up in our portal.
Mhm. Any special tools or things that you might use to kind of manage all of this, right? You have all of these data points coming in, a lot of data points going out. What helps you kind of keep it all straight?
So our system of record, we just recently transitioned to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, right?
Okay.
So it's anything we can that we think is of value, we can eventually get pulled into Salesforce Marketing Cloud and action off of that, right? And so there's God knows how many different tools that sit on top of that. Off the shelf, some homegrown. But the main goal is to get the data we think are critical to use into our Marketing Cloud instance.
Got it. Thank you for letting us do a little peel back the layers of your campaigns. That was very helpful. So now I'd like to move to our last segment. We like to have a little bit of fun here and what we call the gold rush round. We'll do some rapid fire questions. What is one data metric that you wish would disappear forever?
Vanity metrics. Um, Things like raw social media follower counts, impressions, things like that, right? They tell you absolutely nothing of value, but they take up a ridiculously absurd amount of oxygen in marketing discussions, right? How many people are following you is entirely irrelevant if nobody is actually engaging with you.
Correct. If your data team disappeared tomorrow, what would break first?
My spirit? I honestly can't even
Totally.
imagine what would be the first thing to break. Probably half of our dashboards, map would probably break. It would be
Chaos.
an, a total nightmare. I'm probably going to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this now.
I
Thanks,
know,
God.
I know. I feel, yeah, I really, really knock on wood, knock on something. What is the simplest marketing insight that has had the biggest impact for you?
You can't fake giving a damn. Manufactured authenticity does not work. You can't hide behind buzzwords. You can't feign authenticity. You can't pull aspiration from the aether, right? Especially in B2B and B2C marketing. Virtually everybody in the B2B space is trying to empower users by democratizing something, right? Um, and all of that manufactured authenticity in the world cannot make up for half baked features, poor product market fit, and ignoring what your users and your customers are saying. The best marketing leans into truly giving a damn about the outcomes you're delivering for your customers.
I totally agree. I think that's lovely too. I think we always think it's not that people don't dislike marketing, they dislike bad marketing. And we can always tell when it's not genuine, when it's just like a play, like, oh, we think this will get it, and the rest of it doesn't back it up. So I agree.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we have to give our customers and our users some credit.
Mhm.
They see through artificiality in a heartbeat.
What is one data mistake that you'll never forget making?
Oh God. Okay, so I built an entire campaign off of the results of an experiment that I personally built the dashboard to measure. Now, for full transparency, I am a SQL novice. And I don't remember exactly the mistake I'd made now, but it turns out I had somehow screwed up my SQL query. And the thing that we were thought was driving the highest ROI was actually the thing that was hurting us. And luckily we caught it before it launched, but this was after spending an absolutely stupid amount of time and effort building out the campaign. And it was in like final checks that somebody smarter at SQL than me was like, this is completely backwards, Josh. What are you doing?
I mean, credit for like the liberal arts math to like jump in and be like, I can learn SQL, I can do it. So I think, yeah, and you won't make a mistake again. So I think that's totally fair.
From now on, if I even try to venture a SQL query, I have it checked before
Right.
I rely on it.
Before you, this is your data team, right? Like they can't go anywhere because you'd have to be like, check my work before we say it's live. I love
That's
it.
exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Joshua. How can our listeners learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can visit pieinsurance.com, or watch our Safety First and Pie Insurance ads on YouTube.
I love it. That's where I'm headed next. Thank you so much for your time today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
To never miss an episode, subscribe to the show wherever you listen. I'm Kathryn Chernoff, and this is Marketer's Alchemy.